At 6:12 every morning, Brenda Lee's alarm went off. Not 6:10, not 6:15, always 6:12. She would sit up in bed, feet touching the cold floor, and stare at the same framed photo on her dresser, a smiling woman at a beach, hair blowing in the wind. Everyone who visited her home thought it was Brenda. It wasn't, and for 30 years. No one ever asked why. She looked at that picture like she was mourning someone who was still alive. Brenda Lee was ordinary in the way that makes people trust you. She worked administrative jobs, paid her bills early, brought casseroles to church, fundraisers, neighbors waved. Coworkers confided in her. Friends described her as steady, the kind of person you don't imagine has secrets, because she never seemed to want more than the life she had. But that was the first lie. Brenda's life was carefully divided into two worlds, separated by a thin line of silence and fear. In the late 1980s, Brenda was 27 years old, living in a small Midwestern town, recently divorced, quietly rebuilding. That's when the second life began. It didn't start with drama. No crime, no sudden disappearance. It started with a decision so small, it felt harmless. A different name on a form, a second mailing address. A phone call she took outside, voice lowered, back turned to the room. At first, it was just easier that way. Easier than explaining. Easier than being seen. By day, Brenda was Brenda. By night, and sometimes on weekends, she was someone else entirely. Another name, another history, another version of herself that only existed in specific places, with specific people. She traveled just far enough that no one would accidentally cross paths. She memorized details like an actress, learning 2 scripts at once, birth dates, childhood stories, favorite foods. She learned how to switch between them without thinking. The way a bilingual person switches languages, mid-sentence. There were moments she almost slipped. A coworker once asked why she couldn't attend a holiday party because she had family obligations. Even though she'd previously said she was spending Christmas alone, Brenda laughed it off. A neighbor spotted her in a city 2 hours away and swore. They saw her holding hands with a stranger who looked nothing like anyone. She knew. Brenda denied it gently, convincingly. People want simple answers. She gave them. But the cost was always there, humming under the surface. 2 calendars, 2 wardrobes, 2 sets of memories that could never touch. She couldn't get sick in the wrong place. Couldn't be seen by the wrong doctor. Couldn't post photos. Couldn't relax. Couldn't fully belong anywhere. Every time she laughed, part of her was listening for footsteps behind her. Every time she loved, she measured how much of herself was safe to give. Why did she do it? That question haunted everyone once the truth came out. Was she running from something? Or running towards something she felt denied? Those close to her later said she seemed happiest in moments no one could explain. Long drives, quiet smiles, sudden tears during songs on the radio. It was as if she was grieving a life she was still living. The reveal didn't come with flashing lights or police knocking at the door. It came quietly, almost cruelly, through paperwork, a routine background check, a name that didn't match, a record that shouldn't exist. When the first person confronted her, Brenda didn't argue. She sat down, she folded her hands, and after 30 years of holding her breath, she finally exhaled. She told the story in pieces. How one life gave her safety, and the other gave her truth. How she never planned for it to last this long. How every year she promised herself she'd stop, until stopping felt more dangerous than continuing. She spoke about fear, but also about freedom, about how lonely it is to be fully known, and how exhausting it is to never be. The people who loved her struggled the most. They replayed every memory, every conversation, searching for clues. Was any of it real? Did she ever mean the things she said? But the uncomfortable answer was this. Both lives were real. Both versions of Brenda existed. And neither one was a lie in the way people wanted it to be. When the story finally surfaced, strangers were quick to judge. But those who sat across from her, who heard her voice crack and saw her hands shake, asked different questions. What would you do if the world only accepted half of who you were? How long could you survive? Pretend that. At what point does survival turn into self-erasure? Brenda Lee doesn't live a double life anymore. Now she lives with the consequences of finally choosing one. Some doors closed forever. Some people walked away. Others stayed, trying to rebuild trust on unfamiliar ground. And that photo on her dresser, it's still there. Not as a reminder of a lie, but of the cost of hiding. Because the most unsettling part of Brenda's story isn't that she fooled everyone for 30 years. It's that she had to. And it leaves a question hanging in the air, long after the screen fades to black. How many people around us are living lives we'll never see? And what truths are we asking them to bury just so we can stay comfortable?